Chinese Communist Party is launching yet another anti-corruption purge, this time against investment bankers. This attempt to solidify Xi's hold on the economy might only hasten its demise. Welcome to China Uncensored. I'm Chris Chappell. Mark your calendars, my friend. On Saturday, October 5th at 8 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time, I will be hosting a special live stream celebrating you for helping us reach 2 million subscribers. And you'll want to be there. There will be some big announcements about the future of the show, and Matt Shelley and I will do something we've never done before. Again, that's Saturday, October 5th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. We have changed the date. It's October 5th. See you there. So Xi Jinping is embarking on yet another purge in his never-ending hunt for corruption in the Communist Party. Even Hollywood isn't cranking out this many lazy purge sequels. This time he set his sights on investment bankers. But just like the previous anti-corruption campaigns in such areas as the health industry and the military, this one is really just a bid on Xi's part to consolidate power and eliminate rivals, which means it's time for another episode of the people's favorite communist soap opera, General Hostility. Previously on General Hostility, the Chinese Communist Party's great leaders have all had one thing in common, aside from communism, and that is so-called anti-corruption purges. Mao did it, Deng Xiaoping did it, Jiang Zemin did it, and Hu Jintao did it. It's the perfect tool. How else can you confiscate wealth for redistribution to the party and get rid of your political rivals at the same time, all while cleaning up the country? But has Xi gone too far this time? Now, Xi Jinping cracking down on the finance sector is nothing new. He's been at it since 2021, as this 2023 article indicates. But this assault on investment bankers is new. Accusations and charges range from violating regulations to illegal fundraising. According to Bloomberg, China has approximately 8,700 investment bankers. But since August, at least 3 top investment bankers from different firms have been detained by Chinese authorities, which is sending a chill through the industry. One of those detained was Jiang Chenjun, a senior executive who oversaw deal-making at Haitong Securities Company. He fled the country but was arrested abroad at the end of August and sent back to China, with his arrival widely publicized by state-run media. Another detainee was Wang Chen, the head of the investment banking division at Guotai Junan Securities Company, who was detained in late July. What follows is a series of totally unrelated coincidences. Earlier this month, Haitong and Guotai Junan agreed to combine, after Xi said China should cultivate a few top-ranked investment banks, at a time when Wall Street firms are trying to expand in China. Total coincidence that executives from those two companies were detained. Total coincidence. Meanwhile, according to Chinese media, Wang is assisting in an unspecified investigation. Kind of the same way that Bao Fan, a star banker who disappeared last year, has been assisting authorities in an investigation. Yeah, assisting. Not, naming names of people who aren't towing the party line. To be complete, Haitong was already in some trouble, since for the first half of this year, it reported a 75% drop in profits, mainly due to the sector's downturn. So Haitong's profit drop might be why the executive fled. Or maybe he saw the writing on the wall when Haitong and other state-backed brokerages recently asked many of their investment bankers to hand in their passports and ask permission for all business and personal travel plans abroad, after private guidance from Chinese regulators. State-owned companies have been known to hold the passports of senior executives and Communist Party members, but applying the rule to everyone in the company is unusual. Of course, the Chinese Communist Party claims that it's trying to help the economy, which is in an abysmal state, by rooting out corruption in the top brass. And if anyone would know how to find corruption, it's the CCP. It's like how they used Hannibal Lecter to catch other serial killers. But if helping the economy by targeting investment bankers doesn't make any sense to you, you're not alone. Some experts are already pointing out that these crackdowns are hurting the morale of financial workers and prompting fears of layoffs at a time when the economy isn't doing well. This just goes back to China's third plenum from earlier in the summer. During that summit, Xi Jinping and his cronies promised to implement reforms to prevent China from sliding into a recession. Unfortunately for the Chinese people, the reforms were so modest and the pledges so mired in communist dogma that no real plan emerged to meaningfully address the underlying economic issues. And that was by design. We did a whole video on that, which I'll link to below. But Xi's third plenum amounted to him gaining more control over China's economy, mainly by sidelining rivals or perceived rivals and emphasizing the importance of party ideology and Xi Jinping thought. These so-called anti-corruption purges of investment bankers are no different. Xi implemented a plan years ago known as the Common Prosperity Campaign. Under that plan, many Chinese investment bankers had to take big pay cuts, at least on the senior level, and had to follow other belt-tightening measures. In fact, salaries for investment firm senior staffers were outright capped, which sounds great if you're into the redistribution of wealth to the people, specifically the people in charge of the government. I wonder how the economy is failing under these geniuses. Now, the CCP is trying to gain even more control over the economy by targeting the investment bankers. As one director of a small bank put it, the goal of authorities is to profoundly change the distribution of the profit pie in the entire financial industry. How very communist of them. Regulators are focusing more on IPOs, initial public offerings, and other capital-raising activities. But the IPO market is facing its worst slump in years, with new listings down by 88% when compared to 2022, which any math or business expert will tell you in the most technical terms is, holy smokes, that's a lot. And tighter regulations might add even more strain on investors by increasing the risk of more IPO cancellations. Already, Xi's campaign to control the finance sector has proved reckless and risky for the economy as a whole. Some foreign investors are finding the investment banking sector in China more difficult to navigate, like billionaire Mark Mobius, who said this last year.
Well, I'm personally affected because I have an account with HSBC in Shanghai. I can't get my money out. The government is restricting the flow of money out of the country.
And China Renaissance Holding, a small investment bank, lost a lot of its own staff and shares after the disappearance of its founder, Bao Fan. Remember him? Also last year. So given the lackluster economic results, why would the CCP do this? Besides their leading construction projects involving digging their heels even deeper into the sand and refusing to change course. Let's listen again to the godfather of emerging markets.
The bottom line is that China is moving in a completely different direction than what Deng Xiaoping instituted when they started the big reform program. Now you have a government which is taking golden shares in companies all over China. That means they're going to try to control all of these companies.
Xi Jinping wants to consolidate his control over every aspect of Chinese society and transform the CCP into a financial and military superpower. Because any failure under his watch, or just because he wasn't even more in control. Some of these arrests and purges will pave the way for Xi to appoint loyalists in their place. According to Sino Insider, the wave of securities firm mergers, financial executives being asked to return salaries, and the expanding anti-corruption drive in the financial sector appear to be part of Xi's agenda to strengthen the party's control over the financial sector, eliminate the lingering influence of factional rivals, diffuse financial risks, and transform the PRC into a financial power. The mergers could help make Chinese investment banks more competitive against foreign investors, like Goldman Sachs, which has recently expanded in China because they're idiots. But they also bring the financial assets of Xi's factional rivals or other influential elites under his control, and better prevent efforts by anti-Xi forces to carry out a financial coup against the Xi leadership, as was attempted in 2015. As for cutting salaries or demanding a payback of some of that money, it could go towards helping bail out other struggling financial institutions. That would both cover up the extent of Beijing's financial crisis and appease investors who have taken losses because of it. And if you're wondering, are foreign investors really dumb enough to fall for that? If they're dumb enough to still invest in China, then yes, they certainly are. All signs seem to point to Xi continuing and ramping up these purges and reforms, all of which started intensifying after the 20th Party Congress. So far this year, for example, 2 officials under central management have been investigated, compared to just 1 in the first half of 2023. If that wasn't bad enough, so far this year, 53 officials from central party and state agencies, state-owned enterprises, and financial institutions have been probed thus far this year, compared with 48 in the first half of 2023. All of this upheaval and purging also seems to suggest that the Chinese economy is in even deeper trouble than we're seeing publicly. Executives who know all this are likely to try and pull their assets out of the country and leave altogether, which explains why now they have to submit their passports and get official permission to leave China. Because we can't let the world know that Xi's post-pandemic economy isn't doing as well as they'd hoped. And this episode wouldn't have been possible without your support on patreon.com/China Uncensored. As my way of saying thanks, I'll answer one of your questions. Today's comes from Shinny the Pooh. Hello, I have a question that I don't know who to ask. In law practice, what practice area would be the most relevant in hurting the CCP's interest? I cannot approach the career counselors from my law school with this question, as I obtained my degree from a university that heavily relies on Chinese students' tuition money. I asked a few recruiters, but they aren't really aware of the CCP. However, I'm very interested in eventually getting into a field or role where I can do something to curb the CCP's influence in the US. I'll bump up my tier on Patreon next month and look forward to participating more on this platform. First of all, love the screen name Shinny the Pooh. And great question. I'm glad you're thinking about what you can do. So I actually took your question to a friend of mine who got his law degree at Harvard and then went to get a law PhD at Yale. I think they're the only university in the country that has a law PhD. So I know when you're getting your law degree, it's a while before you can focus on anything outside your basic curriculum. But what you'd want to do is focus on anything with an international dimension. The best way to conduct lawfare against the CCP. They try to operate on the international stage, but if international law can be refined and really given some teeth, then the party can finally start getting pushback. So, best of luck to you with this. Thank you so much for your support, and I'm looking forward to seeing you more on Patreon as well. And thank you for watching. Click that orange button to support the show on Patreon, and before YouTube sends you to some random video, why don't you click on this one instead? I made it, so I stand by the quality of it, and it helps the show with YouTube's algorithm if you click it. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.